All right. Good evening, everyone on the East Coast. Good, I guess, almost evening on the West Coast, but good afternoon. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And tonight we do have a terrific show for you. We have the one of the stars of the horror indie flick known as Beast Mode. So give me one moment while I introduce them on. All right. So without further ado, I want to introduce actor James Duval. What's going on, man?
What's happening, Brandon? How's all you moving and shakers doing out there? Oh, wait. Brandon, I'm so sorry. For some reason, you're muted, so I couldn't hear anything.
Oh, I apologize. No, I was saying. So first and foremost, thanks for taking the time to come up here on Movers and Shakers and spend some time with us. First and foremost, before I hop into the film, can you tell me, just talk to me. How are things going? How are you doing?
Um, I'm doing good actually. It's been, as I think the entire globe knows, it's been a rough year. A lot of things going on. Um, I can say that I think we were speaking just for a minute before the broadcast started, and we were talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, and I feel that that gives me a lot of hope for the future. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. Like things are turning around.
Indeed, indeed, man. So as I said, hopping right into the film, hopping into Beast Mode. Can you talk, briefly about how you got involved, with this film?
That's a good question. It's an interesting story. It was actually through a friend of a friend that I ended up getting involved. Spain Willingham was making a movie, and he had spoken with a friend of mine, Tyler Jackson, who's also I think one of the associate or co-producers, but kind of brought us together, and that literally is how I got. And then they gave me the script, and I loved it, and met with them, and they were, they liked me enough to cast me in the part. So I got to say, whenever anyone says yes, it's a good day for me.
Definitely, definitely. And to speak further about that, the thing that I had a chance to see the film, and the thing that's interesting that strikes you immediately about it is just the concept of what's happening, or I should say the phrase that they have that's linked to the what we have happening in this film, and just that idea of I guess having what seems pristine and great on the exterior uh may may hide what's rotting within. Can you talk a bit about like that dichotomy of what this film addresses?
Well, that I also I think is a really good I think kind of description of it because if you think of an apple, I think on in its most basic terms, an apple can still look. You don't know what it looks like on the inside. You can pick it up and take a bite, and it's completely rotted on the inside, worm eating it, and you wouldn't know because it's beautiful from the outside. So it's kind of the idea is like as people, all of us, I think, are pretty. We're born beautiful, and something happens inside of us changes us. Um, and I think that that kind of the movie, tackles that idea. You're right. We see it now, like with the massive egos and narcissism, and when the egomaniac becomes a megalomaniac, and it literally everything becomes mega. And how do you resolve or come to terms with something like that? It just becomes such a massive disconnect where, and it's I can say that it's happened. The guilty shall remain nameless for the moment, but in the 30 years that I've been doing, movies and television, I can certainly say I've seen this business turn people into beasts. Um, as fans and audience members, we've seen all of us at some point in our lives. I think one of our heroes fall. You know, they start off promising and they emerge and they just become this monster, and then they fall right before your eyes, and you realize then that everybody's fallible. And I mean, maybe more of the ideas is like instead of holding people up and revering people with such, you know, uh, high ideals, which is I think almost impossible to live up to. It's almost like we punish us ourselves for being human, for being fallible, for making mistakes. Because really, I think in the end, that's how we learn and that's how we grow. So if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn and you can't grow. Um, like the leader of this country that shall remain nameless for the last 4 years doesn't say he's sorry. I think
So
we came up with
with
orange Cheeto head beast. I mean, he's a monster years ago, but I mean, I think I would equate him as the same kind of the idea. There's hope for some people, and I think others are lost, unfortunately.
with that being said, just as you were saying of being fortunate to be a part of some incredible projects, whether it's on TV or on film, and being around other fellow actors, other contemporaries, what have you, and being, as you said, being able to witness that transformation firsthand. Can you talk a bit about what you would say you you use as inspiration in terms of bringing this character to life? Because I feel like that it's a great segue into that idea of satirizing a lot of what people consider, what is something that they would see behind the scenes within the industry. So with that in mind, are you able to comment? There's some folks that I know that I pull, and these are amalgamations of a lot of these different folks that I was fortunate to encounter over the course of my career.
Yeah, it's very much that, and I think I definitely took it after a few actors, a few musicians, um, who again start off promising and extremely talented and become larger than life, and then they literally, it's like something I used to hear one of a really well respected filmmaker, the director of Independence Day. We there's so many great films and so many talented filmmakers out there, and then every once in a while, I'd just be like, well, I don't know what happened. This guy just lost his mind. You watch his movies and you listen to him speak, and I don't know what happened to you, but he drank the Kool-Aid. He needs to check back into planet Earth and join the rest of us. And not that there's anything wrong with checking out once in a while and telling these incredible stories, but it needs to be some kind of basis in reality that we can relate to, at least, even if the story is hyper realistic. Um, I thought it was really interesting thing about this kind of movie is I had a lot of fun playing him, but only with the idea, of playing a really magnanimous character, with the idea that at the end of the day, I got to like literally clock out and just become myself again, and it wasn't real. Uh, in that idea of taking it as far as I can for laughs, you kind of get the idea that what we think is funny or how we're playing it out, there's people who do this for real. Like this is serious business to them. Where the rest of us, it's like, no, man, this is just a movie. I don't know where you got. Yeah, I'm gonna go sit back down. This guy's out of his mind, and we're not with that party. Which, if you've seen, I don't know if you got to see an early cut of the movie, but yeah, there's some moments like that with with the character.
Oh no, definitely. And I guess the thing that immediately struck me that I feel is like the antithesis of just what's at play at this film is something that Ray Wise's character says, and it's basically celebrity is a mess and fattens the ego, eats the soul. So just that quote like stuck with me overall in terms of like the overall antithesis of everything at play in this film.
I'm going to have
So
to agree with you, Brandon. I think that that is the most poignant thing about the film, because I mean, especially now, I can say that being an actor for 30 years, we didn't have social media when I started, and you really want and you work to get noticed for people to like you, which increases your awareness, and then people want to cast you in their movies or their television shows. But that's a double-edged sword and a trap, because as an actor, you kind of realize, at least for me, with all the art and the craft of it is very important to me. And so years ago, I realized if I wanted to be a good actor, then I needed to not be like this or dress like this or talk like this, but I needed to be an uncarved block. I need to be something that I could carve into something and then whittle back to its basic form once that job was done, because I'm going to play, if I'm lucky, everything across the board. And again, so the opportunity to do something like this and have a lot of fun being so kind of wicked, you know what I mean? And I think really he really just doesn't care about anybody. But it's the idea, in having fun like that, you realize that there is this kind of madness, there's a monstrosity in people that exist that really do enjoy behaving that way, enjoy hurting other people, they only raise themselves up when they hurt other people. So it's we have these masks that we put on, as Ray was saying, to protect ourselves from that. But we can get caught up in that. We can become that monster in
And
the
I
guise
was
of
gonna
trying to protect ourselves.
and I was gonna say the thing that was fascinating about that is just as you were saying, and experiences with observing others, just that I will say doppelganger. Uh, it, it just observing their journey in terms of being kind of wet behind the ears and not really experienced with life, and yet give them a little bit of time, they get swept up into the becoming
They get the
the
fever, I
original
call it.
person.
They get
Yeah,
that fever. They catch the fever,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
So that was definitely fascinating.
and and it reminds me of that other saying, give them an inch, take a mile. It's like, well, most of us,
Yeah,
that's human
yeah,
nature.
yeah, definitely. And just as you said, you've had a extensive career in terms of uh, various projects that you have been a part of, Independence Day, geez, Donnie Darko, all of these, incredible pictures. And in speaking to that, can you? There you go. And speaking to that, can you? Everyone has a different perspective or a different approach. What would you say it is for you that draws you to a character or draws you to a role that says yes, that's something that I would like to be a part of or do.
Believe it or not, it's the conflict that draws me to characters. I think when I was younger, and I was still, and I'm still learning. It's the life is a learning process. But I was trying to figure out what kind of roles I wanted to play. And what I realized, instead of saying I wanted to be this doctor or this struggling scientist or this paraplegic or whatever it was, is that you could get a script like that and the script is just horrible. You think it's a character, so then it really kind of came down to the material that I was getting. How did the material that I was being sent make me feel? Did it do something for me? um, did it do something to me? Did it scare me? Usually if you're lucky, you get a lot of opportunities and take the opportunities that challenge me. And of course, I wish I had a much more. I mean, I'm happy the way things are. I don't get me wrong, but I'm definitely not in the position where I'm picking and choosing most of my roles too. So sometimes it's a choice to just work. Not beast mode wasn't that, but I do get jobs. It's like I can sit around or I can go, go be this office guy, or I'm gonna go be the office guy. I'm gonna go work on this craft and work with this actor or this actress. And every time I do a job, I learn something, or I come back away with more than I came. I guess is kind of the idea, and with that philosophy in everything in life.
But I was going to say, to speak further on that, I feel you're selling yourself a little too short, because I feel with many of the characters that you have played, in placing anyone else's hands, it would just be a bit part, but they are roles that that you have that you brought life to, where they are memorable even amongst the ensembles that you have there. So like, even
That's a huge
in an
compliment.
example of, yeah, I mean, even an example of Independence Day, your Quaid is your dad is quite a wacky character, but I still remember your character from that film in terms of being the moral compass, or kind of being the grounded
The anchor,
sane
yeah.
person among that family unit. So it is still a juggling act to be able to pull that off, even among incredible ensembles like you would have in that film. So
It really is, and I think then maybe even more now is the idea of like when I first started acting, they used to say there's no small parts, there's only small actors. So it's no matter what part you're given, is to give everything that you can. It was, believe it or not, it was Randy Quaid while I was doing Independence Day. I asked him for some good advice, and he said, "Kid, work as much as you can and take whatever they give you. It's not your job to like everything you get, but it's your job to make sure that everybody believes you. And if you can do these jobs that you don't really love, you're not really fond of, and you're great at it, wait till you get that job that you love, and you'll fly." And I mean, I know this man has been through probably 365 degrees from the story I'm telling to where he's at now. At least I hope he's on 365 degrees. But it was one of the wisest pieces of advice I was ever given. Um, at the time, also, what was interesting is Randy, his character is usually extremely boisterous and very big. He was very soft spoken on that film, very quiet, very friendly, very open. I just wanted to ask advice mainly, and then watch the actors out because I was so young and impressionable. But yeah, I was very, very kind of, and still to this day, impressed by that little piece of advice because I think that what is amazing that anybody can really take away from this is it's not just acting. That's in anything you do. You always do your best. You put everything into what you do, and you'll fly in the future. Doesn't matter what it is, because you know how to give everything. And when you can give everything, then there isn't really a job that you don't. When you're giving everything, you kind of start to love what you do, even if it's washing
definitely.
windows. Like I, believe it or not, like meditate washing dishes sometimes. Not saying that I love washing dishes, but I love while I'm doing it, I love the process of it. I don't think about anything else. I finish, everything's clean. I got a clear head. Wow, I sound like the clean guy from The Odd Couple.
But with that being said, I mean, you were talking a bit before just about that process of getting into character, and once the job is done, being able to let go of that character. Because I know in a lot of instances, we have great actors out there that are really about that method acting, and while that's great, sometimes that could be troublesome in terms of taking a lot of that stuff with you, and
It really
finding a way
can.
to kind of let go of it. So
It really can, and I mean, I think the most important thing about being an actor, or I've learned about being an actor all these years, is to learn different processes and different ways of working instead of like, well, I'm method or this. Because of that, because if you get stuck on something, say method, then you might find yourself haunted on your everyday life and on the next job as well. It can be just as easy. I think this get misquoted a lot, but it can be as easy as what Laurence Olivier was saying to Dustin Hoffman. It gets slightly misquoted, kind of like, Luke, I am your father, or Scotty, beam me up, which those characters never say. He says, no, I am your father. And he says, beam me, Scotty, beam me up. But he never says, beam
right.
me up, Scotty. So it's that same kind of little difference and idea that makes all the difference in the world. Um, okay, so you guys are going to love this because I'm moving so fast right now on 3 cups of coffee. What was the exact phrase I was just talking about?
Oh, you were talking about like Star Wars, and you were talking about beam me up, Scotty. That.
And the Vader line,
Yeah.
Luke, I'm your father, not being the actual lines of dialogue. So I think, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is we. It's interesting how we can remember things and carry them with us long after, and it's not really what it was. And so, kind of keeping that in mind as an actor too, to keep your head clear for your characters, even the ones you love, to learn to let them go. Um, I don't know. And I kind of said that, believe it or not, in a strange way, that I was going to be an actor when I was young because I moved to a lot of different schools. So because I moved to a lot of different schools and made a lot of different friends, and then had to leave them,
Taking on different personas, like almost like resetting yourself every single
and I
time you
had
go
to
to a
do that
new
as well.
environment.
Where I went something different, I had to kind of
Right.
so test that out. Is this gonna will I be able to survive as
Right.
this character?
Right.
And it was a survival mechanism for me,
Yeah.
especially. I know, when I was really young in the '70s, because my mother's from Vietnam, so growing up here where I was born in Detroit and like, oh, I'm American, and people are like, oh, you're a dog eater, or you're a goo, it was tough. It was a tough way to grow up. So it became very early on for me as a child, the survival mechanism to create this persona that wouldn't be picked on, that could get by without, you know, being kept down. Because I think it was interesting to go from like being teased for one thing in the '70s, and once that had gone and the entire world stage had changed, I was just like everybody else, um, which was bizarre. I think, there's this comedian who said it back in the 2000s. He said, yeah, it was an amazing day, 9/11, it was really a horrible day, but that was the day that if you were black, Asian, or Mexican, you were an American for the first time. And you turned to your friends from the Middle East and you went, tag, you're it. And I mean, that it's cold. But that's sort of like I've watched this happen generation after generation in this country. I watched it happen from the '70s as, a child, and my mother coming from Vietnam and my father meeting her in the war there, to the '80s where it really became it started to shift towards the Middle East, the Iran Contra affairs and all the hijacking that was happening. And then after 9/11, that moved into a completely different realm where we thought we had evolved. I thought we had evolved to some degree. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's eye-opening and frightening, because we thought, at least I did, after Clinton being president for 8 years, and that was the beginning of my 20s and acting and starting to travel the world and meet people and really see the things for what they were, thinking that we were moving forward as a society. And really spent like the next kind of 8 years going backwards, only to find hope again for the first time. And sorry, buddy, this is just an opinion. Don't have to feel this way, but this is just my opinion. To find hope for the first time and then watch that get crushed steadily for 4 years, and to see it come, to see that sun come up again after a long, dark night is a good thing. Watching this stuff happen over the generations now, over these 30 years, has in a lot of ways also pushed me further into making movies and television. It hasn't driven me away from it at all. Be a part of voices that not only can take stories that can take us away from these things so we can hope and dream and not think about these realistic things for a second, but also to bring us closer to humanity, to who we are, you know, the things that make us laugh, the things that make us cry, the things that make us ponder. Because as we were saying before, these are the things that we'll grow from. And isn't really, like, at the end of the day, like we were saying, isn't that what it's all about? Growth. That's how we learn. Get back up,
Absolutely.
keep moving, make those mistakes, and go, okay, I'm not going to do that again. This is what happens when you do. So I don't do that again, and I don't get burned like that.
Gotcha.
Sorry to get
And
heavy like that, Brandon.
no,
I
no,
didn't
no,
realize
you're
I was
fine. You're
doing
fine. And actually taking that step further, just going back, still back to that theme of letting go of a lot of those things when once characters are done. Would you say, because I understand that you're a huge practitioner of yoga, does that, help a great deal in being able to like reset and to be able to kind of unwind after once a project is done, is to like use like the teachings there or the methods there to assist with that.
I would say that it's not just with my work, but with everything. I'd use it to reset. And I mean, I teach it. I haven't taught in a while, but I used to teach it. And what I used to say again, I know people would be like, well, I don't have time for yoga. And it's like, well, it's not that you're making time for yoga, you're making time for yourself. Because that's really what it is. Um, the yoga is taking that time to spend that hour and a half for yourself to say, this is my left side, this is my right side, this is my upper body, this is my lower body. And then what are you thinking and what are you feeling while you're doing that, because that's really what it's about is observing what you're thinking and feeling as you're physically moving and doing these things, like everything else in everyday life. What are you thinking and feeling, and how do you process those things? So as we've all learned, and I learned this when I was young and still carry this with me to this day, that if you want to change the world, you need to change yourself. So how do we do that? Well, we empower ourselves. We need to empower ourselves and strengthen ourselves from like we're saying, from the inside, like an apple. That way, when you bite into it, it's as sweet and as firm as the core as it is on the outside. And we work hard to do that. And so that idea of empowering yourself in such a way, I had this conversation about 2 weeks ago with a friend, and I'll say it like this: is that before I started doing yoga, I used to think that as the older I got and the more experiences I gained, there were certain things you needed to do, like a rule book. If someone said this, you responded this way. If someone did this, then you did this back. And then the older you learn, you start to make adjustments to that. But then what I began to realize when I started practicing yoga, believe it or not, is I threw all of that out. I threw all of it away, because what I began to realize is the self confidence I had, in myself, the way how the well being that I felt, made it easy for me to go. All of these things were coming from a place of being afraid that if I had those, they would protect me. But the truth of the matter is, I'm already safe. And no matter what happens, no matter what comes in front of me, I know I'll do the right thing because I trust myself to do the right thing. And so, in a lot of ways, what I learned is like, I learned to trust myself. And as an artist, we need to trust ourselves if we're going to express who we truly are and what we really think. If we want to convey someone else's thoughts and feelings as well, then we need to be honest about that. And so, as just my personal opinion, but as an artist and as an individual and as a human being in this planet, the most important things we can do to change the world around us is to be a reflection of the way we'd like the world to be, starting anyways. And that came from working on the yoga and improving myself mentally, physically, spiritually.
Awesome, awesome. So lastly, before I let you go, James, and again, like I said, thank you so much for hopping on and talking about this film, and even
Thanks.
talking about those things as well. Uh,
Thanks for
in
having me,
lieu
and thanks
in
for being patient.
of course, in lieu of everything that's going on currently with limitations that or stopping and the pausing and the restart of the industry, what can you are you able to comment on what it is that you're working now, even beyond now that beast mode is out?
I am. Right before the lockdown in March, I finished a pilot in Buffalo with Michael Madsen, and Eve Morone. Actually, Robert Lasardo and Daniel Baldwin, a great cast of actors. So fingers crossed, waiting to hear if we get picked up. It'd be nice to get called back to do that. That was sort of play this undercover New York cop infiltrating the mafia, kind of
Okay.
like almost Sopranos in Buffalo, New York, a
Okay.
much smaller, dingier, grittier location. Um, I also just recently did a film that I'm really excited about. Actually, the director had texted me while we were doing the interview, called I Challenger, and I play this 40-year-old weed dealer who's a big gamer and finds out he's about to get evicted, and the government just took all his money that he saved up from selling the weed. So he's got to try to figure out a way to kind of come up with money so he doesn't get evicted. So now he's a weed dealer, so not too weird that he decides that he's going to bury himself for 24 hours for a 24-hour self-burial challenge. And he'll put it online and he'll get tons and he'll go viral and he'll make all this money if he survives the burial. So that's I Challenger, and I would say that I did no justice selling that right now, but that I'm very fond of. It's a very weird, crazy movie. Um, and I guess I'm about to go shoot something called The Devil's Playground next week that I'm excited about. And what else? Done a couple of other jobs. I guess I did another job with the director of SLC Punk and SLC Punk 2, but he just wrote this script. It's a first time director called Ashes, and it sort of takes place 6 months after an asteroid hits the surface of the Earth and everything's been destroyed. So I've got
Gotcha.
a few projects coming, uh, bubbling in the works. And all those are in the can, by the way. So those should, I think, after Beast Mode, you should see, hopefully For Nothing, which is the that Buffalo pilot, the Mafia pilot I was telling you about. Hopefully that comes next, and then I Challenger after that.
All right, cool, cool. Well, James, as I said, thank you so much for hopping on, man, and talking about the film and talking about what you have going next, and sharing, some of your stories. I really do appreciate it. For those of you that are watching out there, James, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Um, well, they can find Beast Mode starting December 1st on all pretty much digital platforms. Um, the rest of the stuff is like, I guess I'm like still kind of stuck in the 20th century. I mean, if you like my stuff, keep an eye out and just keep looking for me. I'm not big on dropping like big news on myself. I kind of let the jobs do that. But from time to time, you can find me at Real James Duval on Twitter or Instagram, and I will drop things from now, here and then. Probably much to the chagrin of people I work with, but I find it odd to promote myself after all these years. So I spent the whole '90s and 2000s fighting against it, and now with social media, it's the accepted thing, and it's a bizarre thing for me. I mean, it's cool, but it's bizarre. It's cool because everybody could be an actor and a filmmaker now, and in 30 seconds. I love that about TikTok. And tell a whole thing. I mean, it really is amazing. Yeah, I shy away from that a little bit. I'm like, watch me be fake in a movie first. But that's about it. Yeah, for lack of a better phrase, I like to think of myself as a bad STD. I'm here to stay for life, folks. I'm not going anywhere. Just when you thought I was gone, boom, there I am. So get used to me, and I hope you like some of my upcoming work.
Awesome stuff, man. Well, there you guys have it. There you guys have it. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find us on Facebook, which you're watching now, the live stream, but we do encore episodes on YouTube. Uh, and we and we also have Instagram. You can find us at Moving Shakers Unlimited, on Twitter at Moving Shake UNLTD. Of course, you can find me, Brandon Choi ENT, on Twitter, and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. James, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
You
There
love
you
it, brother.
guys
Can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
have it.
I
There
had a
you guys.
blast.
No problem, man. There you guys have it. Be safe out there. Please be safe out there. And till next time.
Be
See
safe
you
and be
later.
well for a better tomorrow, everybody.
Bye.